Well, the Confessions music is playing, so you're very welcome back into the confessional, courtesy of Drive Time at Greatest Hits Radio. Thank you for your tales, which come into confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Before we go any further, just a reminder.
The trolley. Trolley's here, everyone.
I was beginning to wonder whether David was going to deliver. David Jacobs' memorial trolley is back again.
Yeah.
What do we select from our drinks trolley today?
Well, I'm very fickle, and I got given a weekly planner today from Budvar. So why not have a nice cold Budvar as your nice cold lager?
This is the way promotion is supposed to work.
It definitely works like that.
We send you a calendar.
Oh my goodness!
You're a cheap date,
Why not?
Susie. Cheap date.
Dear.
It's very good. It's got 8 each days. I've written my to-do lists on them.
Really, it's a calendar.
His calendar's got all the days on it.
All the days.
Wow!
I mean,
Brilliant.
If only.
All right then.
If only my calendar. Oh, it does.
Oh,
It does.
all 12 months. Imagine.
Today's confession comes from John. John, thank you for this tale. Father Simon and the General Assembly of Acolytes. Many years ago, I was working for a car dealership. We sold a famous brand of car, which shall remain nameless, reassuring for your producer.
Yeah.
Needless to say, these cars were half decent. Had 4 wheels, seats, brakes, and everything.
Wow.
You can hear John now in full salesman mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Calendar with every day, a car with tyres.
All the wheels.
For an extra few quid, you could have shiny paint, leather seats, and heated mirrors. For even more quid, you could have a sunroof, shiny tyres, a radio with all the latest stations on, a first aid kit, and a dangly air freshener. These are the extras.
Okay.
I mean, you're not doing a very good job, John, at this point, I don't think. Though a dangly air freshener does make a difference.
No, I don't think we want a dangly air freshener, do we?
It makes the
Why
car
not?
smell better.
It always smells awful.
Okay, we'll settle. We don't
Yes.
want a dangly air freshener. Thanks, John. Anyway, you should know, Father Simon and team, that I dressed in the latest clothes so that I could cut a dash around the showroom and everyone would realise I was as stylish as the cars I was selling. I was quite the salesman, and I prided myself in being able to sell anything to anybody. I was salesman of the month for 5 of the last 12 months. John doesn't tell us how many salesmen there are, but anyway, let's assume that there are lots. Most of our customers were extremely wise and happy to be purchasing a very fine automobile, complete with 4 wheels, seats, brakes, and everything.
Yeah, all of them.
Wow.
But we had a customer who would come in week after week, after week, after week, complaining about his remote control key fob. This was Mr. Wilson. I had sold him his car, a very nice model. We'd gone through everything together, and everything was working, including the remote control key fob. No, it doesn't work, he would say, in his slightly 1950s, I've got a style guide here, in his slightly 1950s RP Southern English, easy-to-mimic style voice.
Okay. Almost tailor-made for you, this really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Well, let's see, shall we, says I in my accent-free, but so I'm told rather captivating voice. I pressed the green button on the fob. Pop went the lock. I pressed the red button on the fob. Clunk went the lock. You see, Mr. Wilson, all good here. Are you sure you're using the key fob correctly? Mr. Wilson went beetroot. Are you suggesting, young fella, my lad, that I don't know how to use a key fob, as you call it?
Yes.
That was, of course, precisely what I was suggesting, but I didn't want to insult a customer. No, I said, of course not. But when you're using top-of-the-range equipment, subtle changes in, and here I was making things up, in atmospherics in the ionosphere can make a huge difference. I see, said Mr. Wilson. You need, I continued, to be close enough, obviously, and make sure you're pointing it at your engine. Maybe this was unnecessary information, as he gave me a withering stare. But all of us in the dealership suspected that it was indeed user error. We could never fault his car once, every time he brought it in. My suspicions grew that he was just not listening to me, something I think about with my family as well. We ran through everything, time after time, and yet he would continue to return to my garage with his wretched key fob. One day I happened to drive past this customer's house. I made an observation and a plan formed in my head. The next time he came in complaining that the key was not working, I went through the same checklist but added this. Do you by any chance, Mr. Wilson, have solar panels anywhere near your house? I said this knowing that the answer was yes because I'd seen them on his roof and his neighbour's roof. Why, yes, of course, he said. It's very important. It's our contribution to things.
Contribution?
Well, of course, I said, and quite right too. We all have to do our bit. But unfortunately, according to the latest research, the shortwave patterns produced by only the highest quality solar panels can bounce around some housing and interfere with the infrared and ultraviolet around your car. Do you have high-end solar panels?
Only the best.
Yes.
That's actually the next 3 words.
Really?
Only the best, he said. That'll be it then, I said. The frequency of the key and the frequencies of the panels and the solar energy being generated are precisely the problem. False readings and signals, I'm afraid. If you try shielding the keys in tin foil, that may well help.
Wow.
Believe it or not, Father Simon, I never heard from him again. My conscience is now clear. Yours, John.
Wow. Okay.
So, what do we learn from that? We learn that obviously being a car salesman is a tough job. But also, if you wrap your keys in foil, it makes the infrared and the ultraviolet
Yep.
bounce off the ionosphere in a way that means the key fob is going to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, John's conscience is clear, but is he going to get forgiven? Sister Susie?
Well, John, I don't know how true the tinfoil is, but do you know what? It made me laugh, and I also love the accents. And I think that man sounded really annoying, so I'm going to forgive you.
Also, I didn't have to try very hard with the accents.
No, you didn't. No, not really a stretch there.
Brother from
very
another
good.
cousin.
Well, I'm surprised that the tinfoil. I'd have thought the tinfoil would have made it worse. Would have made sure that the fob definitely didn't work. But it clearly did work because he never came back, did he? I would maintain key fobs are one of those things that are supposed to make things better, and they always make things worse. And here is my prediction for the future. Very soon we are all going to be driving cars where you put a key into the thing and start the car. That's how it's going to be. Mark my words, 10 years' time, no one's going to have key fobs anymore because they're more trouble than they're worth. And yes, Mr. Wilson did sound a little bit irritating. So for that reason, I concur with Suze and forgive.
I think we're talking a load of rubbish there. People's verdict, please. 61054. First word is Simon. Forgiven or not? Tonight's car dealership confession, where it was revealed that all you had to do to make your key fob work was not have solar panels, but to cover your keys in silver foil. Or maybe it was just hogwash. Anyway, did John get forgiven, yes or no?
So Rachel says John is forgiven. What an annoying man. Sounded like my neighbour who always has only the best. Tom in Weston says forgiven. He can't be responsible for other people who can't follow instructions. Annoying customers are the worst. And Pete finally says not forgiven. Tin foil will just shield. Lol. Infrared and ultraviolet are close proximity devices, and the ionosphere only works on HF type frequency. Brilliant stuff.
You're
Thanks,
just
Pete.
making stuff up
I am
there.
now. Yeah.
I think the whole thing was, Pete, that it was mumbo jumbo. That was he was
Clearly.
just thinking of scientific sounding words and phrases and stringing them all together. Okay, so your confessions, please. We'll swap it for a smart speaker. Car dealers, people who've bought first brand new cars, second-hand cars. Maybe there's a confession there. I suspect there is. Solar panels as well. Today's, I think, was the first solar panel confession. Anyway, we'd love to hear more from you. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Greatest Hits Radio, it's 5:45. It's confession time. Let's just check in live with our favourite pub in the whole world where the drinks trolley is just arriving. And producer Susie is snatching... Thank you, David. Producer Susie is snatching something as it goes past. What have you snatched today?
Yes, I've snatched a nice bottle of red wine, particularly a Pinot Noir. I thought would be nice for today.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just a small glass for Matt, and
Yeah.
I'll take the rest home with me.
Yeah.
Today's confession comes from Nigel, Father Simon and the Forgiving Fellowship. This confession goes back to autumn 1985, when I was in my first year of high school, year 7 in current money. I was a sporty type, and in that autumn I was being introduced along with my mates to the sport, or is that torture, of cross country.
Oh, no.
No.
So many people have just reacted in exactly the same. This would be an extracurriculum activity that would take place after school at whichever local school had set up a course for the numerous kids that wanted to take part. The interest level in general was quite low from the new high school kids, but I was encouraged to participate because of my overall sporting prowess and my reputation as a fast runner. After some persuasion by school friends and the head of PE, Mr. Grimes, I decided to give it a go along with the other kids from various older years. We cautiously approached the starting line on the big day, and I was pushed forward by my colleagues since they thought my running capabilities made me clear favourite for this race. As I hesitantly reached the front of the group, I noticed that I was amongst 5 similar-age kids that looked like they knew what they were doing. Smart running trainers, sweatbands, stretching.
Stretching.
Whereas I stood there in my school PE kit and soon-to-be muddy white plimsolls. Following a blow of a whistle, off we went, and it was clear that the semi-professional looking group at the start knew what they were doing and clearly were experienced in this running discipline lark. They ran in a tight group that led the field, interchanging positions as different parts of the course dictated. I managed to keep them in my sights and was running for most of the race on my own and was confident of 6th place, which was not too shabby for my first go. As I recall, at the end of the race, it was up a steep hill that preceded a straight sprint into the finish. Classic cross-country rubbish. As I started at the base of the steep hill, the group ahead were just reaching the peak of the hill and would start their sprint to the finish line. I puffed and wheezed and panted to the top of the hill, at which point I was surprised not to see any of the leading pack jostling for final position ahead of me in the sprint finish. And my curiosity was solved when a marshal, basically a young kid in an oversized orange high-vised vest, informed me that the leading pack had taken the wrong turn when they reached the top of the hill, and he went on to tell me that because of this, I was now leading the race with just the sprint to the finish line. No one would catch me in the final sprint as I started with my run to the finish. Although the true leading group had realised their error and were hot on my heels. Well, victory would clearly be mine, and I won by a comfortable 25-yard distance and took the race and the shiny gold effect medal. Excuse me. On the way home, the whole bus couldn't believe that I was the school's first ever cross-country winner. Grimes was so pleased, he made me sit up at the front of the bus with him whilst he informed me that I was going places and I would win many more races with his advice and guidance. I hadn't at this point told anyone that I had won the race only because the true leaders had taken the wrong turn. At home, my mum and dad were delighted, and I was allowed a chippy tea as way of celebration. I hadn't told them about how I'd won either. The next day at school, Mr. Grimes ensured that my victory was announced in school assembly, and a mock medal presentation was arranged, much to my embarrassment, but to the delight of my school friends. I still confessed nothing. 2 weeks later, the next cross-country was arranged, this time at a new venue and course, and this time the whole football and rugby team decided to participate. Also, 2 school buses were needed to take all the kids to this race. This was entirely due to the fact that I had made it popular. We were hugely represented. We'd been given vests with school colours and everything. Again, I was shoved to the front of the starting line. I was met with scowls and angry faces from the 5 kids I had cheated out of their victory 2 weeks before. They had their special trainers on again, more sweatbands, more stretching. The race, Simon, followed the same trend as the previous one, and alas, on this occasion, I finished a lowly 6th. No surprise to me, of course, but a major surprise to my colleagues, my parents, and a very disappointed Mr. Grimes. The following dozen cross-country races throughout the high school year followed a similar pattern, although the participating numbers dwindled with each race and my finishing position dropped downwards also. The year ended disappointingly as I failed to complete the course in the last race. Get this. Over the following 4 years, I continued to disappoint. In the end, I got banned from all school sports by Mr. D because he thought I was taking the... Yeah, because he thought I was taking the mick.
Oh, right.
My mum and dad and Grimes believed that at some point I would rekindle the winning way and win another shiny gold effect medal. Several years on from that glorious day, I still had kept the true reason for that victory a complete secret until now. The longer I kept it to myself, though, the harder it would be to break the truth about that victorious day many years before. And so, Father Simon, I don't seek forgiveness from Grimes, who in general made everyone's life miserable over 5 years at high school. I don't seek forgiveness from all those that I kept the cross-country win from. I do, however, seek forgiveness from the runner-up of that first race, the kid with the nice running trainers, the sweatband, the one who knew how to stretch before each race. He went on to win pretty much all of the races afterwards. I would have got a clean sweep if it wasn't for that pesky, lazy marshal who didn't direct the leading group correctly, but then realised his mistake, but he showed me the way instead. So basically, it's basically cross-country is the world's worst sport and is hated by everybody. So I suspect Nigel is going to get forgiven. But let's just check in with Sister Susie first of all.
Well, Nigel, there's a lot to unpick here. I can't believe you kept up with the cross-country for so long.
4 years he kept going.
Wow.
I would that's enough punishment for me. That you just need forgiveness for sticking with it for that long. So I don't really feel like you've done anything wrong. Also, maybe put someone in charge better than a marshal than a young kid, but that wasn't your responsibility either. So I don't think it was your fault really, and you had a lot of pressure on you afterwards. So I think you've done enough, and I think you're forgiven.
You see, you lie that one time.
Yeah.
And the lie grows and grows.
So it does.
Over many, many years and over many, many decades in Nigel's case.
So true.
And there it is. But now it all depends on Brother Matthew.
Well, I'm going to forgive. I think we've already established that cross-country running is just an excuse for PE teachers to catch up on marking, isn't it? Because there's no other reason. Send all the kids off.
Correct.
And I can sit here and have a fag and catch up on everything else. And also, no amount of stretching or sweatbands is a substitute for actually following the course, sunshine. So there's nothing to forgive. If they don't know where they're going, tough. You won, and that's the way it goes. You knew where you were going, and maybe the marshal wasn't very good, but the marshal was very small. So that's the way things work out. Looks like you should be following your nose and not your sweatpants. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
That makes no sense.
Makes no sense. Okay. Also, Mr. Grimes, what are you doing sending your kids out in white plimsolls to go for cross-country racing? So
Yes.
there you go. That's
His fault as well.
That's a very good point, I think, which I just made. People's verdict, please. Do you forgive Nigel? 61054. Start your message with Simon. Forgiven or not? First of all, people's verdict on today's confession from Nigel. It was another terrible tale from the world of cross-country. Here's the people's verdict.
So Joe in Northampton says, forgiven. I agree with Matt.
Yes.
Nigel won fair and square. Rachel says, not forgiven. I wavered because of the stretchy kids and their professional attitudes, but Nigel got the front seat of the minibus under totally false pretenses. Not good. P.S. I'm possibly one of a small band of listeners who actually likes cross-country.
Really?
And Tommy in Wiltshire says, forgiven. I did a similar thing at school. We had to do 10 laps of the field and the class had staggered start times. I just did 5 and made up a timing. Absolute waste of time.
Well, he needs some forgiveness as well. So your tale, please. We would love to hear it. confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And if we use yours, then you get a smart speaker, which seems to be a reasonable deal. Another one tomorrow for what to put on our drinks trolley. What have you selected from the trolley today, Susie, live from the pub?
Well, I'm going to go with what Lynn suggested earlier, and an espresso martini. My recommendation would be have it with gin and not vodka. And obviously you can do a decaf as well, and you can have a non-alcoholic version as well.
If you're doing a dry January version.
Yes.
All right. Thanks very much for a varied answer there from the trolley. Today's confession and another smart speaker handed out. This goes to Lily. Thank you for today's tale. I should say this, I think it's got a 12 certificate.
Oh, good.
Oh, no.
For tender ears. Father Simon, Brother Matthew, Sister Susie, I need to confess a sin against my late mother many years ago, but I first need to set the scene. Our Christmas is gone, but this has reminded me of a tale for you. 4th of July 1993 and my older sister's 40th birthday. And given the time of year, we decided to have the party in our garden. Friends and family were invited and Mum asked me to do the food as she was a hopeless cook. I decided to make my lasagna, which was a family favourite and included a good slug or two of red wine.
Of course.
This way I could make it in advance and just serve it with salad, which meant I wasn't stuck in the kitchen and I could enjoy myself in the garden with everybody else. I also made my famous creme brulee, where the biscuits are soaked in copious amounts of brandy with soft fruits soaked in liqueurs. On top of that, then the creme fraiche and sugar on top, then grilling, caramelised and so on. This is all washed down with plenty of beer, wine, cider and gin. So you got it's a drinks trolley. That's what they have.
Yes.
That's what they got.
I approve.
The next scene I need to set out is the layout of our garden. We had a patio at the back door level and then 3 steps down to the lawn with a small brick wall and 2 concrete squirrel statues on the plinth of the wall at the bottom of the steps. 2 cute little squirrels sitting up with a nut in their hands and their little ears sticking up, made out of concrete. Well, the music was blaring and we put on one of my mum's all-time favourites, Dancing Queen. We're all dancing and singing at the top of our voices when there was a yelp and my mum, whilst spinning around, fell down the steps and landed on one of the squirrels.
Oh, dear.
Nobody thought too much about it at the time, and indeed, whilst she then sat down and didn't dance anymore because she'd hurt her ribs, the rest of us carried on partying. Anyway, by the Monday, Mum was in a bit of pain, so she arranged to go to the doctors. Broken ribs were diagnosed. The saga didn't end there. A couple of weeks later, complications from the broken ribs led to Mum getting pleurisy. Well, she was in hospital for a few days and lost the use of 2 fingers in her left hand. They thought this would be temporary, but she still had it in December. When I asked her what she wanted for Christmas, she simply said, "I'd like a new hand, please."
Oh.
So, my dad and I used to play darts at the local social club. One of the team worked as a sales rep for a firm that made prosthetic limbs.
Okay.
And spent his time travelling around the country to various hospitals, peddling his wares. I happened to ask him, "Do you make hands?" To which the answer was yes. I asked how much it would be to buy one, and he asked why. When I told him what my cunning plan was, he said not to worry, I could borrow one of his samples. So I got a shoebox, wrapped it up in tissue paper, Christmas wrapping paper, put it under the tree, along with her real present. Well, it went south from there. Nobody, Father Simon, was prepared for the earth-shattering, blood-curdling, neighbour-terrifying scream that was released when my mum thought she had got a nice new fluffy pair of slippers for Christmas and she opened the shoebox. She threw the hand across the room and she lay on the floor. And the hand lay on the floor just like the Thing from the Addams Family. Even our dog Buster was growling at it. Mum refused to open any other presents just in case there were more body parts. No amount of me protesting that it was what she said she wanted for Christmas was ever going to placate her. If she's looking down on me from heaven with both Dad and Yorkie the salesman for company, she can finally forgive me. She was always cautious of opening any gift from me from that point on, especially if it involved a shoebox. Well, I wonder why. I wonder why, Lily, that might be. I certainly would be, blimey. Anyway, you can see this classic family setup, why it seemed a good idea to Lily, but not at all a good idea for Lily's mum, Sister Susie from the pub.
Yes, definitely, Lily. I can see why you may have thought that was very funny, and I'm sure maybe there was some booze involved like there was at the party, which is fine. I don't know, it really made me laugh, and the fact that you suffered for the whole of the rest of you every time you gave your mum a present, I feel like that is hard enough, so I think I'm going to forgive you.
Well, shocking turn of events. Brother Matthew.
I'm definitely going to forgive just because that was hilarious. That is super. I mean, and to be fair to Lily's mum, you did ask for a new hand, and that's what you got.
I mean, the way you
in
do.
the shoebox. Yes. And also, I'd love to know if Yorkie ever, with his many limbs in the boot of his car, ever got stopped by the police. And what on earth is that?
Yes.
So, yes, I'm definitely going to forgive. Superb story.
Okay, it's the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Lily for tonight's confession? It's on the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. That's what we need. You can email simon@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Tonight's confession was from Lily. Was a tale about Lily's mum, how she said what she wanted for Christmas is a new hand because she was having a few problems. So Lily got her one from the prosthetic limb man who was down the pub. It sounds like a sitcom, but anyway, and then Lily's mum wasn't that impressed when she got it at Christmas. Anyway, the people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
Yeah, it's worth saying all the verdicts are very puntastic. Jerry says, hilarious, but that's what you get when you try to give someone a hand.
Yes.
John Weston Firm, you've got to hand it to Lily. It was a great prank. And Kevin Hall in Northern Ireland says, great confession, had me snorting my orange juice out of my nose. Did it come in handy for other occasions, as it might might have been a handful.
Another joke. So that's the same joke 5 times.
All done very different ways.
think.
Brilliant.
Had the same flavour.
Love them all.
Anyway, you may well have thought, you know what? I've got a confession. I fancy it being read out. That'll be fun. Plus, I might get a smart speaker. If so, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. And, it's an early appearance.
Oh, there he is.
The David Jacobs Memorial Drinks Trolley has arrived, from which we're selecting what?
We're going to go with a bitter orange spritz today.
Oh, that sounds
Non-alcoholic,
nice.
but you could put vodka in if you fancied it, Matt.
No, I don't think so. We're working
But
and
we were quite boozy yesterday, so...
we're driving machinery here. Today's confession comes from Nobby. Nobby, thank you for this. Simon and the Forgiving Collective. For my confession, I take you back to the mid-1980s, around the time that the mighty Coventry City were beating Spurs in the cup final.
Oh, yes.
Not that this is relevant, actually, that's 87, so there's no.
Oh.
But I thought it was worth getting a mention in any case. We, being a group of lads from Coventry, were having a pleasant holiday in Ibiza. And I must apologise for some old-fashioned attitudes, which I now realise are deeply flawed.
Okay.
With Sunsea and Sangria, what wasn't to like? Well, there was one slight irritation. Here comes the first lump that we have to pass over. And that was a large party of German holidaymakers booked into our hotel. Don't worry, it all works out okay.
Okay, right.
Now, I don't wish to paint them with a stereotypical brush, whatever that is,
No,
but
don't
whether...
then.
There's a butt coming.
Yes. And they were being over-competitive in the poolside games, building human pyramids in the pool, or just being generally boisterous. Their antics always raised a few tuts from the British on holiday. However, the one thing that bugged us more than anything was the fact that I know this is the stereotype, but it was true here. They always got the prime position around the pool. No matter what time the English holidaymakers raised from their slumbers, invariably they had their towels out on the most sought-after sunbeds around the pool. This was extremely pertinent since the other side of the pool was permanently in the shade. To be honest, this didn't bother us lads from Coventry, as we didn't tend to get up until the crack of lunch anyway. However, it was certainly a major talking point and a bone of contention, especially amongst a rather rowdy party from Leeds, I have to say. Frankly, we'd heard enough moaning and bickering from the Leeds guys, and not to mention the annoying chants of Leeds, 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 echoing around the corridors of Ibiza, which we didn't want. However, we enjoyed our holiday nevertheless and made it through to the last night. Out we went for our usual shandy in the local bars and clubs, and eventually got back to our hotel in the early hours of the morning. Now, to be honest, we hadn't minded the Germans at all. We liked them. They'd been a jovial lot, and the fact that they riled the party from Leeds so much had been a great source of entertainment and amusement for us. But what we saw when we got back to the hotel defied belief, Father Simon. We couldn't believe our eyes, but there, all around the pool, were German towels neatly placed on the aforementioned prime sunbeds. Even we were shocked. It's 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
4 a.m.
Wow.
No wonder they always had the good sunbeds if they put out their towels at this time of the morning. Well, frankly, this just wasn't cricket and was blatantly not acceptable. So in our giggly state, there seemed only one thing to do, and that was to chuck the towels in the pool.
Ah, right.
Oh, dear.
We watched as each and every towel sank slowly to the bottom of the deep end, finally went to bed feeling rather chuffed with our actions. We awoke the next morning and eventually wandered down to the pool area with the usual sketchy memory of the previous night. As we walked through the restaurant, it was apparent that something had gone on. Throughout the restaurant area, there was the occasional turned-over table or chair, and a fair scattering of croissant and bread rolls around the floor. Far more than usual, anyway. We were also greeted by a number of the Leeds group who looked even more miserable and agitated than ever. There was clearly a subdued and rather tense atmosphere around the pool, with most people sitting in the bar area rather than poolside. To say that you could cut the atmosphere with a knife was an understatement. What's gone on here, then, we asked inquisitively in our Coventry accents to one of the Leeds party. Well, he replied, we got back last night at around 3 a.m, and for a bit of a laugh, we decided to put all our towels out around the pool.
Oh, right.
And you're not going to believe this, said the Leeds lad, but we got up this morning, we came down to the pool, and guess what? Do you know what they'd gone and done? With last night's antics suddenly coming back to me, it didn't take much guessing. The Germans were only laying on our sunbeds and they'd thrown our towels into the pool. Needless to say, said the Leeds guy, we weren't happy. He didn't use quite those words,
No.
but that's what he said. The bloomin' cheek, we agreed with the Leeds lad before we sulked away into a dark corner of the reception area to hide our shame. Apparently all the hell had broken out, with lots of pushing and shouting between the Leeds lads and the Germans, and eventually a table full of croissants, rolls and rubbery cheese and cucumber got knocked over. We did wonder who on earth has cucumber for breakfast, but anyway.
Come on.
Only the intervention, the Danes do, let me tell you that.
Oh, do they?
Only the intervention from the management stopped it coming to blows and a full-scale riot. There you go.
Yes.
So I had to wait a little bit longer. So I seek forgiveness not from the Leeds party, who were rather loud and boisterous anyway, nor from the management, since much of the food that was served was only fit for hand-to-hand combat anyway. But I do seek forgiveness from the poor Germans, who I think were from Dusseldorf, who no doubt had their holiday ruined by the near riot which had taken place over the breakfast table on their final morning, and actually was none of their doing at all. They were completely innocent parties. You see what I meant by saying it's all okay in the end. Okay, so Nobby needs forgiveness, but is he going to get it from Sister Susie in the studio?
Nobby, no, I don't think you are going to get it from me, because you just added to the stereotype that the Germans are stealing the sunbeds, and maybe they were, but they didn't on that occasion. They didn't throw towels into the pool.
Yeah, that's true.
And therefore, the Leeds guys, you should have just said, well, actually, that was me, and that you should have been brave enough to do that, and you know, maybe they wouldn't have had a fight with you, maybe it would have been fine, but because you didn't own up, I am not going to forgive.
Brother Matthew.
I've never understood this towel reserves a sunbed thing. Are you on the sunbed? No, you're not. Well, then I can be on the sunbed. And it doesn't really matter whether you've left a towel there or not.
Yeah,
if you're not sitting on it, then I'm having it.
What if you're in the pool?
Maybe if you're in the pool. If you're near enough to see me sitting on your sunbed, then you can tell me to get off the sunbed. So I've never understood that. But I think there is one thing that we, the Germans and the people of Leeds, can agree on, and that is that cucumbers have no place on a breakfast table, regardless of anything else that's going on. So I am going to forgive because of the cucumber.
61054 on the text. Start your message with Simon. Do you forgive Nobby, yes or no? That is the question. 61054. First word is Simon. Earlier we heard tonight's confession. It was Nobby's Coventry and Leeds toweling holiday confession. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Aaron in Worcester says, forgiven. I almost crashed the car as I was laughing so much. So forgiven from me, brackets, I am safely stopped now, in order to text. Simon says, I totally agree with Matt. I don't understand how you can shotgun a sunbed just by putting your towel on it. It should be done on a first come, first served basis. And Drick says, forgiven. I forgive Nobby. My husband and I went to Koh Samui a few years ago and witnessed this whole towel situation. We fell asleep on the lounges one evening and woke up to towels being placed all over us.
I think confessions involving towels are usually quite fun.
Yeah.
Do you remember the one with the towel and the bee, or was it a wasp?
Oh, yes, I do.
And the Mr.
Yes,
Happy.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's all kinds of adventures to be explored. If you have a confession, we'd like to hear it. You send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.